I'm not gonna have, like I said, some of the behavior that happened at some of our public hearings that we've held recently. I don't see that as a problem this evening, there's hardly anybody here. Obviously, the wind turbines, it is on our agenda. I don't plan on voting this out of committee. We're gonna have some discussion about it tonight. I'm gonna say to my word that I made at the planning commission last week. So with that, I'm going to call the public. I'm not sure which order they were handed in, but I'll start with Nick Mary.
Thank you. Before I start, let me kind of pass a little bit of helpful documents out to you guys, and this will be my talking points as well. Understand the wind ordinance is now in your hands, and I kind of want to, get back to the basics here. And kind of let you know the sticking points, what will be very exclusionary, and what seems to be common elsewhere around the Midwest and Michigan. Seems like we're at the extremes in a way, from what bounced out at that last meeting at the high school in Shiawassee. And I think the planning commission sort of based that around what the recommendations were from the townships. I think the townships were kind of caught off guard with those recommendations. There's a lot going around with propaganda, which I can get into, but I only have 3 minutes, and I think you can kind of figure that out. But what I want to point out here is kind of the basics of what will zone us out and what won't. It would be really hard to work with. There's the height thing. They decided the 450. That'd be kind of like telling an auto car maker to go back to 1980 and redo your tooling. Right now these things are at just under 500 feet. They're getting towards the 600-foot mark. That doesn't mean we're there yet or have to be, but I think there's also a benefit to getting higher because it gets into the noise. Where there's less noise, there's less of them, and I'll be clear too, each township section is not going to be invasive species like you see on their shirts. There's probably going to be on average 2 to 3 per township section. Not that bad when you think of it that way. The sound, they're trying to really push for this property line limit, which normally if you look elsewhere, they're doing at the structure of the houses. So when you see that 45 number, you see that at structure of the houses elsewhere. Here they're trying to put it on the property line, which could be out in the middle of the section where nobody's even out there. And I'm talking to these guys out here signing leases. They're doing their own homework. They're going up to Gratiot County. They're pulling over. They tell me, Nick, I can't hear it. Say, I got back in my car, pulled over on the other side of it. I can't hear it. 45 decibel. I mean, it's a number to you, but until you actually hear how minimal that is, you kind of laugh at it, I think. The shadow flicker, we agree, it's something that's manageable. I wouldn't want a strobe light on my house or anything either, which is what they make it sound like that. It's a slow moving shadow. It's not going to be on an occupied structure. We can even do it outside of 200 feet of an occupied structure. But again, when you get in the center of a section, a boundary of a parcel line, what's different than a guy hunting in a field or a tractor out there? That's way over 45 decibels, or the shadow flicker. I mean, when they come up with this, sort of trespass nuisance argument, I kind of wish we could look at other things that we zone for and things like that too, and sort of be in the same playing field there. Which I'll also get in the setbacks here for that, where they try to recommend this 350%, and that's something that they wanted 400%. You kind of met them a little bit closer to what we want, but to be clear, that's extreme. When you look at elsewhere around the state and the Midwest, it's not even close to what they're dealing with, and it's safe that way. They bring up the one turbine manufacturer that they found 10, 15 years ago that doesn't seem to exist anymore. But in their safety manual, they say you need this huge setback, Well, think of other things like a propane tank outside of somebody's house, that's pretty 30 feet within, and if that thing explodes, don't tell me that manufacturer is going to say, well, now, this is going to be, you guys got to zone this thing way out here in the middle of this field to have propane, there's extreme circumstances and all these fear tactics that are put out there is sort of, you know, if you want to use statistics, I don't know what's safer than wind energy. You know, I want statistics to be used because I think it's in our favor. You know, you have a couple rare instances where a blade broke or a fire started. Nobody's ever gotten hurt. At that last meeting at Shiawassee Township, or the high school, somebody said there was a flaming ice chunk that flew a half mile into somebody's windshield and killed them. Prove it. I don't believe that. I tried to look it up. I don't see that anywhere. So thank you for your time. And our book is open now that it's in your hands. We hope to somehow get a good communication going without the mob type of tactics that have been going on prior. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, Teresa Bangau.
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you to, first of all, Commissioner Bruck. I really appreciated your explanation of non-sales and property values. I thought that was very good at the last meeting because there is obviously a problem with property values for wind turbines. Secondly, I'd like to thank Commissioner McMasters. I appreciate your guidance at that meeting on the board, and I appreciate your vote. I think that we have a great wind ordinance to start with. I think there are some other issues I've passed out for you that I'd like to kind of see in maybe the next vote. I think are still important, and I did hand you out another township, our neighbors, to Clinton County, and they have a very extensive, thorough wind ordinance. So I just thought you might want to read through that because I found that very interesting. But overall, thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Next, we have Mike Rock.
Hi, I'm a lifelong Shiawassee County resident, and the only reason I'm here is I'm really quite concerned with what's going on in our county. I know you guys understand that this is one of the poorest counties in the state. We have no new economic development. We have no, if the way we're going here, the way I see it, you got 3 chances, and you guys got a real decision to make. You've got the wind turbine issue we got going on right now. You've got the proposed project Tim and Duran, and you've got a proposed solar project south or north of Lennon. And I'm going to tell you something. You guys zone this out. You guys let this happen. I've tried to stay neutral. I've tried to gain every bit of knowledge I could gain. I know these people here. I've talked to them. They wanted to sign me up. I know Teresa. I joined her website just to get their insight and their information. And what I don't understand is the county spent a year and a half of our money, yours and mine, to research this. That was what we were told, that the county commissioners were going to research this and get all the information. So I decided, well, you know what, I don't want to get involved. They've approached me to sign my farm up. I haven't signed a lease. I want the information. I want to know what's going on. So at the meeting Tuesday night, in the beginning of it, Mr. Martis had mentioned that if you guys bowed down and wrote the ordinance their way, they wouldn't bring legal action and bring this to a referendum. And at the end of the meeting, one of you gentlemen asked the question directly to that man. So you're telling me if we put the height at 450, I believe that's how it was asked, and we do the shadow flicker and we basically write the ordinance the way you want it wrote, if you won't sue us. Well, then all of a sudden he said he couldn't speak for them people. Well, you just said you're representing them. My point is, you let this happen. You zone that up 450. You zone this out, you can kiss the other projects goodbye, effectively closing this county. That's my concern. You bow down to that, you guys are making a real mistake. I really don't care which way it goes. I don't want the county shut down. You've got 3 chances here. This is the most important point that's been in front of you people in 5 years since we voted for the sheriff. You take this action and you bow to that pressure, you can kiss her two goodbye. Because I got real good information from the opposition over there. They're waiting for this blueprint. You let this happen, you guys might as well shut the county. Thank you. Wait a minute. I want to say thank you to Pete Preston. I think Pete did his job. He spent the year, he did the research, he revised his recommendation 3 times, and believe me, I read every word that he wrote. Somebody needs to tell me how we arrived at 450 feet when his sound science said 500. He spoke to people in other counties. I know he did. He did the research for you guys. You might not want to forget what he said. And it's something I have to say. The one quote in the paper that I read from Phil Hathaway, I know you all know Phil. Phil didn't show his face there to take the criticism from the crowd. He made a point though. I think everyone here knows how smart that man is. You might want to read what he said, upwards and backwards, because I interpret that to be exactly what I said. You let this get zoned out on the threat, you can kiss the other ones goodbye, because you're setting up a terrible blueprint for the opposition. And Mr. McMaster, you have stated that you've had nothing but calls from the anti-wing people. I can tell you that I've tried to call you several times, your mailbox is full. So you might have a little better response if people have an opportunity to talk to you. Because I called every one of you this morning, 3 of you called me back, Gary answered the phone. I just want to make sure, I left a message with you, sir. I just want to make sure that you guys don't take the action to close this county down, because that's what you're going to do. You're going to write the blueprint of how to kill the other 2. And you need one of them. We need one of them.
The item 4, community development monthly report, speak precedent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Standard monthly report, we had 29 zoning permits, 19 building permits, and 66 zoning actions. Things are heating up. There were 2 new homes in the April month reporting there. In May, we already have signed off on 3 new homes, so building activity is continued. Working on a couple of different commercial alterations of existing businesses that are essentially retooling previously used commercial industrial buildings, and that about sums it up. Otherwise, we've been working on the wind turbines, the Shiawassee Speedway, which the consent judgment has been signed off on. Any attempts to intervene on that have been declined by the courts, and so they will be moving forward with what was agreed to with this board. Other than that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
What's going on with Pro Line?
Chugging along, building. Yeah, there's not been any delays with our office. Everything's moving forward. Our inspectors are doing it. The state inspectors are the permit for plumbing and mechanical were pulled under the state.
Sure. Hiring.
Yes, they haven't released the ad yet. Just been a little preoccupied, but that's anticipated to get out shortly. We have not received too many complaints. The fee structure is just a tad bit higher than ours when they pull a state permit, but everything seems to be running well. It's been a very nice checks and balance to have the state inspectors in there either before or after our guys are in there. We've learned a few things as well.
So they've been pretty expedient then.
Yes, yeah, things have not, again, I haven't received.
Fears everyone thought the state was going to drag and
Right.
things would get held up. So do you think you might stick with them or?
I would like to advertise and see what we get. The way that the ad's been redrafted is to encourage all those that previously applied and made contact to do so again. So we'll get right on that.
Would you go with the consent judgment against for the racetrack? I didn't quite clear, you talked so fast I didn't.
I'm sorry. Had it. The consent judgment that you folks agreed to has made its way through the courts and signed off on. There was some attempt to intervene on that. The court declined that intervention to stop it. And so I was out at the site last Thursday. I've been in communication with the owner-operator this morning and this afternoon, and they're moving forward to have their new events. And most likely in the near future, they'll be advertising for a motocross event out there.
Thanks.
I believe one of those interventions failed because the opposition's lawyer didn't show up on time. And, Judge Clarkson's a functional judge, so
Is there a chance that they may sue and?
too late. They had their chance before court and didn't show up. Right? I mean,
I'm never gonna presume that legal action can't be
Nah,
taken
that was
anywhere,
their-
anytime.
There's always things.
There's always possibilities, but they had that one opportunity, that's my understanding. I don't know if others showed up, I know that one of the parties that was interested in this, their attorney did not show up at the proper time.
That's what I like to think.
But- That is a meeting thing,
Yeah, okay.
so. Anything else for President? Okay.
I'll be over here if you have any additional questions on any other matter.
Well, I'm sure we will shortly. Okay, item number 5. I don't have, I would like this brought up for discussion, so I'm gonna ask for a motion. A second, so we open it for discussion, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be voting on it, just so we're clear. So item 5, move to consider motion approving and adopting amendments to Article 4 of the zoning regulations regarding the definitions, provisions to general use, location requirements of wind energy conversion systems. The recommended changes establish requirements for replacement, development, installation, and construction regulations of commercial, residential, and agricultural wind facilities.
So moved.
Motion?
Support.
Support. Discussion. Before we start, there's a few things I want to go through. Obviously, the planning commission has had this for a year and a half. As part of the legislative process, it's now come to us. We've had several public hearings. There seems to be some areas that we probably still need to address or look at. Some were brought up, and I think Teresa's handout mentioned some of these, but this was brought up at the public hearing last week. One is the setbacks in regard to roads and railroads, which is only at 100%. Some constituents have inquired about water quality issue, the weight of the turbines and the structure that holds them on the soil, on muck soil, with water underneath, what that could possibly do. 3, wildlife, bird studies, there's going to be some amendments I'm going to make down the road here. And 4, a lot of discussion on low frequency, and I'm not sure if we've examined that completely. But in front of you, and this is also in your email, is the ordinance. And just before we start discussion, I just kind of want to walk you through a couple of highlights, sticky points. It'll be on page 4. One is the sound levels, which is number 4A down to 3. Talking about 45 decibels. So there's the sound issue. Right below that, B, number 2, is the height, which is 450. This is gone anywhere from 600. The recommendations as low as 400. The 450 was kind of arrived as a compromise or on middle of the road based on input from residents, input from townships. This ordinance was sent out to 14 townships, 13 townships for comment? 14. 14 townships that fall under our zoning. Of those 14 townships, 9 responded. Okay, so 5 did not. Of the 9 that responded, 6 of those 9 actually responded about the height. 3 of them were at 400, 3 of them were at 500. So that's where the 450 arrives at. There are windmills, wind turbines, I believe in Gratiot County, I think are at 385, but I may be off on that. And I know that there's ones in Isabella right now that are being planned for 485.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
were the 6 that responded to the height, were they 6 townships directly affected by the wind turbine?
I'd have to look at the chart. Some were and some were not. Okay, so there's the height issue. If you go to the next page, on page 5, you get back in setbacks and property line setbacks. I already mentioned about 100% for the roads and railroads and stuff. This one, if you go down to D, it spells out 350%. So it's 350% the height. So you would take 350 multiplied 350 times 450 feet in height. That number has been all over the board. It actually went up at the last meeting. It was at 325, it's been at 300, it's bounced all over the place, and ended up being at 350. So those are some of the items. Like I said, we have a moratorium that expires in June, so we don't necessarily have to vote tonight to extend the moratorium. My thought would be, for the commissioners on this subcommittee, but for the rest of us here, take this home, read through this. I have a stack, I know Mike's got a stack of a couple feet of information that's been given to us, all different studies, that we can share. And the idea would be we would come back in June and work on it, maybe vote it out, so we don't have to do the moratorium, but I gave my word at the public hearing last week that we would not vote this out this week, that we would at least take longer than a week to, as a board of commissioners, to review this. So with that, I'd like to open it up to discussion. So, Mr. Ruff.
I have a couple of comments. I have a question for Pete, and I don't know that if I'm allowed to ask just one easy, non-confrontational question or the wind turbine.
Fire away.
I'll start with it. I know on here, you have turbines that are installed today at just shy of 500 feet, roughly 490. I get the height and all that. My understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong here, if you know the answer, because I'm not exactly sure. But Ithaca, I was told, was 385 feet. They also have just thrown up a gazillion more. They look to be the same height. So my question to you is that correct? Ithaca is running at 385 feet, and you say everything today is being put up at 500 feet. Is that accurate? Is that an accurate statement?
Okay, so
I mean, I don't know.
285 or 385? Is it? I think the number was 485. Isabel,
I was
I don't
told
believe
385.
Again, I'm not sure. That's not a trade wind project. So, but I find it hard to believe. This is a certain wind class where I believe that not just in Michigan, but in the whole Midwest, you're looking at in the last 7 to 10 years. I don't know of anything really under the 450. And you got to really dig back to see when this wind class has seen that. It's a good wind class, and these farmers out here don't see why they can't harvest that. And this is a personal property thing for them. I appreciate that, and a couple other people, showing up tonight. And it's hard to get them out. And they always ask me. They put their trust in you guys. They ask.
I didn't mean to open up a whole discussion here. I just had that one question for you. But
Pete, do you know the height of the ones in Ithaca?
Not 100% certain on that.
my other question for Pete. At one point, there was a provision in the ordinance, and I don't see it in there anymore, for a special use permit of a wind turbine of 600 feet. My question to you is there even a remote possibility that the planning commission could issue a special use permit for any wind turbine exceeding 450 feet?
That is, what you see now is the maximum height for a wind turbine at 450 feet. The only way that a company could go higher is for them to receive a variance from the specific language of this, going to the ZBA. However, the ZBA would probably be hard pressed to not find any hardships, not find it to be a self-created hardship, and not see where the ordinance overly imposes compliance. So the answer, in short, is no.
Good. I needed to hear that. And a comment that I had, in defense of the issues brought up in regards to wind and flicker. Now, I realize the flicker can be controlled. I don't mean wind, I mean decibels. And many of the things going on, a lot of things are said about, well, a car going by makes more noise than 45 decibels or 40 decibels, a plane going over, a helicopter. But those are moments in time. We're talking about wind turbines that go generally 24 hours a day, although I was challenged on that by an individual. that wind turbines don't run 24 hours a day. Okay, 23, 22 hours, whatever they're programmed to run. But generally speaking, it's a 24-hour nuisance. And I think that's the concern of people, maybe we're quibbling, we're 40, 45 decibels, but if you're living within earshot of that sound and you listen to it for 24 hours a day, I truly do believe that some people can be affected by that hum. An example I use is when I know it sounds silly, but when I go to my fiance's parents' house and they have this little tiny clock that sits on a dresser and it's run by a battery. That ticking sound drives me up a wall at night. I have to literally take the battery out. So, I don't know what the wind turbine would do to me, but I do believe that it must affect some people. And so that to me is not so far-fetched. And honestly, I don't remember the other comment that I had, so if I remember it, I'll bring it up.
Other information I have to share, I'm trying to get a handle on, not that this matters, not that it's a yes or a no, but a lot of us have wondered what the level of support is. And I did some polling up in the northwest corner. 60% was a telephone poll, 60% opposed, 40% in favor. We have received about 50 slips from one of the wind companies that has the individuals that are supporting it and turned into the planning office. Personally, and I apologize if my voicemail fills up by about 9 every morning, I have only heard from, which would be the exception of you, 3 individuals, one in the city of Wausau who thinks the wind turbines are pretty. I've heard from 2 farmers up in, one in Fairfield and one in Middlebury. Both obviously supportive, both would be leaseholders, both scared that their barns are going to be burned down, and they really don't want to speak publicly. So there is a vocal majority, there's a silent minority. Regardless, our job is to find the right ordinance that takes into account public safety and private rights, environmental concerns, economic development, revenue for our county. There's a lot to this.
I've received 3 phone calls in favor of them. One from a Mr. Resch. What was your name, sir?
Mike Rock.
Well, I'm not gonna.
I know.
I'm not gonna debate with you.
No, I'm not
I didn't get a message from you.
No,
I return all my phone calls.
I called I went down the list from top to bottom, so that's okay.
I don't know if you have the right number, but anyway, I had a very nice talk with Mr. Rasmussen, and he's in favor of it. It was the most rational conversation I've had with a pro-wind turbine person yet, and I do appreciate that. I invite all calls for and against, and predominantly I get, they're against the wind turbines. I do represent District 1, I represent the entire county, but my district is 1, and that is a targeted district with Middlebury, Fairfield, and Middlebury, Rush, Fairfield, and Wausau Township. They're a targeted district, so I do get a majority of anti-wind turbine. But I've had 3, like I said, 3 phone calls. One was very, very interesting, very rational, made lots of good points. So I appreciate all those kinds of phone calls. So I just wanted to.
So any questions, any comments? Gary?
I was a little considerate about the flicker because I know it would bother me, but if you had a property that was 1,000 feet away, I don't know why you would necessarily have to have a flicker that far away. I mean, it would be all right on that, so maybe from a residence or something, 500 feet or something rational or more, but as far as being way in the back 40, seems a little bit overboard.
There's a lot of discussion about flicker,
Yeah,
how you enforce it, how you track it,
yeah.
stand in your yard all day long.
Well, I thought there'd be no flicker for, at least from, so far from, at least the house or, That's the way it is
conversations about
now
that.
from any property line, so. I mean, you could be at, somebody could own a property 1,000 feet away and then they wouldn't even want it on 1,000 feet, so,
And then there's the question,
yeah.
there's even the argument from the farmer who doesn't want the flicker, the shadow on his soybeans or on his corn.
Better cut a lot of trees down.
It's all different,
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chair.
yes.
Does anyone have a clear understanding and a clear explanation of why, I've been asked this 1,000 times and I don't have a good explanation. Why does it not go to a vote this time? I know it would go to a vote if there were wind turbines put up and if there were additional turbines requested at a later date. Why can it not go to a vote by the public? To approve or not approve wind turbines? in
This
Shiawassee?
ordinance or just having them in general?
In general, people ask me all the
Have
time, why
it,
is this
have
not
it.
put before the
Then
people? Why can't we
go
vote?
Spend money, go have a vote, they can spend the money, collect the signatures.
So it could
And
be brought
then
to a vote.
they'll be sued. They'll be sued by landowners who are saying their property rights are violated. They could be sued by wind energy companies. But that is, because they might shouldn't have that hearing. And the whole crowd applauded that's what should be done, but there's consequences when you do that.
Oh, I
That would
understand,
be like saying,
but I haven't understood.
we don't want a landfill, we don't want a manufactured housing park, we don't want certain colored people living here, we don't want certain businesses here. It would be quasi-exclusionary zoning by the people, I think, and I think that could or would be challenging.
But why does it work then if it's, after they're already in place and they want to add more? Why do those often go to a vote of the public, whether or not they want
Sometimes
additional?
it's for no more, or maybe some of these votes are for, let's say when project goes into Township A, and it's under 450. Second phase, they want to bring them in at 600. So then,
So there's a-
some of these votes that are happening aren't to completely disallow, it's to disallow an excessive amount, or, what people would consider an excessive amount, or taller, fewer setbacks, or taller. At least I'm not a lawyer, but that's my understanding. But, we could pass this ordinance, they could collect signatures to overturn it, which then goes back to our one that we have on record. Or they could do, you can do a referendum for, as long as you get ballot status and you get approved by the election committee, then you can be on the ballot and then see what happens from there. Well, they're all hypotheticals.
Because
Very.
we could change it too, we could change it, they could start a referendum and then we could change the wording. Then they gotta start the referendum all over again.
Right.
And then they start the referendum on that one, we change the wording on that, they have to start another referendum.
And then at some point, much like Proline took the county to court, wind energy companies would then take the county to court because the delay in due process.
One thing, one comment I do want to make, in regards to the planning commission and maybe a misunderstanding of your question in regards to lawsuits. I was on planning commission, I'm on this board of commissioners, and I don't believe there's any commissioner on planning or this board of commissioners that's worried about being sued. I think that's a misunderstanding, a misinterpretation of what was said. We had a planning commission had a court order to vote a certain way, and I still voted no. I voted against the court order. I don't believe there's a commissioner on either group that's afraid of being sued by any entity around. So I would hope that the community would not think that we're subject, that we're fearful of being sued. We have insurance for those kinds of things anyway. We do the best we can based on the information that we have. So, anybody can sue anybody for anything at any time. If we lived our lives in fear of being sued, well, we might as well hang it up.
And that goes back to when I asked for clarification from Kevin, I can't remember his last name right now, but when I asked for clarification on the height and setbacks, I was trying to establish a point. I wasn't asking for clarity that we wouldn't be sued or recalled or threatened. I was trying to establish that he was making statements that would require him to, under public law, this entity actually be a legal group. And that's what I was getting at with him. And I started asking about, well, then different heights and everything, and then I said, since we've established that you're willing to engage in political activity and you've had this discussion, what group are you? So, but I agree with you. I'm not worried about a recall because they would have about a week to get everything ready, because you can't recall in the last 6 months of the term, or the first 6 months. And I'm not running again, so I don't know. And if we get sued, we've been sued before, so it's part of business. But Jeff,
So I guess I'm going to make a motion that we table this, but before I do that, would you recap or possibly, I don't know if you want, just a good word, but cheat sheet, give us the ones that haven't been as involved, the 3 or 4 things that we really need to study.
okay.
Because there's so much here.
No, there's a
When
lot.
I read it, it's
There's a lot.
foreign.
There's 4 items
4 items.
that we really, that I believe still need a little bit of work. And it's been, some of it's my feelings, my thoughts, some is what I've heard at these public hearings. One is the setback in relation to roads and railroads, which is only supposed to be 100% of the height.
Setback to
2, it's been brought to my attention about water quality. Some people are worried about the water table. And up in the northwest part of the county, there's a lot of low-lying land with muck and very little muck and clay with water underneath. 3, wildlife. There's going to be some, I'm going to make a few amendments to specific wildlife studies, specific animals. And 4, there's this low frequency issue. There's the 45 decibels that's put out, but then there's this, and I don't fully understand it because I'm not a scientist or a physicist, but there's a low frequency debate. Pete, can you comment at all about the low frequency? What?
Only that I'm not a scientist or an expert. in
Okay.
it. I think that's primarily the reason why the planning commission decided not to include that in there. There is a substantial amount of debate, and it was not overly supported by all of the ordinances that we studied in the state. So we did not find essentially a baseline to put that in there. I do suggest that the board of commissioners chooses to take that up, that you look possibly to employing an acoustical engineer at that time to adequately explain it to you and to determine if it is something that you should be concerned with.
So the items that are in the ordinance that you need to study at, you need to study, look, do your research. 1 is height. 2 is the setback. That's the height's the 450, the setback's the 250%. The noise, which is the 45 decibels. 4th one would be potentially flicker.
But if there's 0 flicker, there's not I mean, if the ordinance says there's 0 flicker,
Right.
then there's 0 flicker. That's truly the only one that could, the only way it could be monitored is if there's either flicker or there's no flicker. This 10-hour, 15-hour, 20-hour.
My understanding is there's technology, the wind companies have talked about this, the opposition has talked about this, that depending on the time of the day, and this can be programmed out a whole year in advance of the calendar, the turbine would shut down, it would not operate when there would be flicker on an adjoining parcel or whatever. So there's some technology out there. There's some conversation about the red lights that are required on the top, which is a Federal Aviation Administration issue. Obviously, you need those blinking, so I think that's light pollution. There's talk of technology that those lights potentially only go on when an aircraft is present close by, so then they activate much like a runway. Unfortunate if they didn't activate though, Sometimes technology fails, but, I would say those are the four big things. Some of this in here is the permitting process, a couple pages of terms, how things are defined.
So two more, so the low frequency, 45 decibels, that's what was recommended. What's the opposition, or where are we at? 45,
The opposition,
is that where we're at?
some would like to see it go as low as 40. The wind energy companies would like it a little higher. What I need to do, or as a group we need to do, is we need to get inside of a house with somebody outside making noises, whether it's running a vacuum cleaner or whatever, and telling us how many decibels it is, because I've heard all different things. I've heard 45 decibels is like a vacuum cleaner running out in your yard. Well, you're not gonna hear that if your windows are shut. You might not even hear it if your windows are open. When it was quiet, and if it was quiet in this room, just because of the noise with the lights and people moving around, you might hit 50, 60 decibels.
I think it goes back again to what I said. Some people are more sensitive than others. Some are less sensitive. It depends on, half full or half empty glass. Some people are very, very sensitive to sound, and some people just aren't. Some people, so that's that's a really tough one to say what's right and what's not right, because what's right for some people is wrong for somebody else. That's going to have to be a compromise of some kind in order for that to happen.
There was other stuff that was brought up, but some of that stuff from participants in the audience, it was clearly they don't understand the process of, everyone thinks that in 20 years these wind turbines are just going to stand there. They don't understand there's a decommissioning process. They don't understand that there's insurance, that there's bonding, that there's, so.
One of the other thing that Teresa has on here, and I'm one of them kind of guys, so the infrastructure, what kind of provisions and what are the things in making sure that the roads, ditches, drains, and stuff like that aren't torn up with heavy equipment, and who's gonna pay for and maintain all that kind of stuff, because we are talking, a lot of this is rural country, not real good roads out there, we're bringing heavy equipment in, big cranes.
I would guess there are bridges. I would guess that fields that they want to put these in, they won't be able to get to, because the bridges won't be able to take the weight of the semis, or the width of the semis up there. And if they do, like you said, there's wear and tear on the infrastructure. But that's something we need to.
Well, I believe that's something we certainly need to address, because we want the roads only better when this is done.
Could I ask one more question in regards to that, like access to the wind turbines?
Yeah.
You guys develop like a roadway and you maintain that. I mean, I know there's talk about soil compaction, and farmers say, you compact that soil, it's gonna take years to get it right again, but you do create an access road to each turbine, correct?
There'll be an access road to every turbine. Correct. And usually they string them together, maybe one road to 3, things like that. And really, that's all in the farmer's hands, That's something that we're really flexible on, and it's sort of benefits them in a lot of ways too,
So who maintains, I think I brought this up at, I don't know if this was at a public hearing or if it was a planning commission meeting, but let's say you put in that road. And obviously if we have zoning and we have roads put in for businesses or whatever, at people's homes or whatever, or cell towers, they have to adhere by certain standards. But who maintains those roads? Let's say
we do. It's not the county.
So you go palm every time it snows.
Correct. Yep. We have our own crew.
I'm not concerned about the roads in the private property.
I'm concerned about both.
Like Jeff said, he wants the roads to be better than when we first came here, and typically that's the case. There's always a bonding put in place for the roads to make sure that a lot of times prior to coming in, we upgrade some roads just so that they can post our equipment.
You might have to do that in some spots. Okay, yeah. So obviously my concern are obviously on our roads, but also if one of them does, because you hear about how they catch on fire or they fall over or whatever, and there's a snowstorm, are you gonna be able to get to them? But you're saying that you guys have your
Absolutely. Yep.
I think the roads, that's on the county roads, that's a road commission, and they'll have to deal with the road commission on that, so, you know, they'll have to put up any bonds or fix any parts of the road, that's a road commission, we don't have, really have control over the roads. I mean, we got enough problems, Mark.
But what you need in the ordinance for the roads. but-
Yeah, I mean, the road commission looks after that, we look after all this other stuff. I mean, in the private property, they look after their own. I mean, we can only, I mean, the road commission does their own thing. I mean, they want the blacktop road if they want.
Let's touch, we'll touch base with the road commission.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know from the planning discussion, and Pete, I know you back me up on this, we have these discussions. What happens when a fire truck turns down one of those private roads? Because they think they can turn around, or they're lost, or they think that's where the fire is and they get stuck. So who's that on?
It's a driveway. And somewhat, that's why as part of any special land use review and such, we've made sure that there were wide areas in the drives and turnarounds so that any fire truck that did.
So when they start the planning process to actually get the permit to put these up, it would go through your department and you would do citing about the roads and the.
Right, the special land use would cover anything out of the county road commission's public right of way.
Okay.
The road commission itself would stand, as it would with any developer, to judge what kind of improvements would be necessary to the public road system outside of us, such as the widening of intersections, the checking of bridges, the repair of bridges if there's a certain number of turbines, or for the waymaster to make sure that that alternative routes are chosen and what time of the year things are installed. But anything outside of that public road right of way is the responsibility of the planning commission when dealing with the development.
I would make a motion that we table this.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. This is tabled until the June meeting.
How long does the moratorium go? Till the
And
end of
June 30th. So, I mean, obviously, we would have, we can't get everything worked out. We can extend it, and it's up to us. We could extend it a month, we could do it 2 months, we could do it. You know. Okay, item number 6, consider approving the request for release of part of an agreement prior to expiration for farmland PA 116 agreement by Mr. Kenneth Smollett for property located in New Haven Township.
Our motion, I'll make that motion. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 7, consider approving the required L-4029 form establishing the millage that the county intends to levy for 2018 summer taxes and authorize the board chair to execute all necessary documents.
So moved. Support.
Okay, any discussion? Is this the follow-up to the equalization that we talked about a month ago or 2 months ago?
Correct. This is the follow-up to the equalization study. This is the formula that is prepared. We conducted essentially the formulas to determine if there would be a Headley rollback, which would affect your millage, the maximum that you're allowed to levy. And it was at 0.9975. And this, which you usually get in June for the summer tax collection, we're able to get it done now because we usually get local treasurers very concerned that we're not done for the July tax billing. So this is essentially the setting of your millage for summer tax collection.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 8, consider approving a proposed ordinance permitting regulating the operation of certain off-road vehicles on most county roads of Shiawassee County pursuant to section 324.81131 of the Michigan compiled laws.
So moved. Support.
Okay, discussion. Do we have a rough draft of this yet?
Everybody should have it in their packets.
Yeah, same.
Draft, should say draft one of this one.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I see on page 3 under section 4 of whatever it is,
Yes.
license, safety certificate, etc. It says a person less than 18 years of age shall not operate ORV unless they have a driver's license or they've passed or under the supervision of parent or guardian and has his or her possession of ORV safety license. What is the definition under the supervision?
Well,
Like on the.
when you're hunting, that means within arm's length. I'm not sure what this,
If you look in section 1B for definitions,
Then on the last part, section 4, it says a person less than 12 years of age shall not operate an ORV. So are we suggesting that anyone between 13 and 16 can operate an ORV?
with direct supervision or a driver's license.
Well, you can't have a driver's license.
They're probably not gonna have a
You can have a
driver's license.
certificate. All right. I can tell you right now, I'm not in favor of 13, 14, 15-year-olds without a driver's license.
I was at a meeting the other day, well, it was Michigan Works meeting, so there's a bunch of commissioners. Lapeer, I mean, for what it's worth, Lapeer said minimum 16.
Yeah, that's where I'm gonna put my foot down right there. 16 for me, I don't know.
I don't have a problem with that.
Then the other question I have, we talked about licensing, insurance, things like that. Let's say a 16-year-old gets on the road, doesn't have insurance or how that's gonna work, and wrecks into someone driving their car. What's gonna happen there? There's a liability, how's this work? Is there tags?
They're not part of the no-fault act, but,
You're right, they're not part of it, so how does that work?
well, really, it's just like them being off of their own property. These are the rules for ORVs. So if they're not on their own property, those particular rules apply to all ORVs.
So they don't have insurance?
Even if they cause like damage to something,
Well, yeah.
they're liable. I mean, they can be sued for it. They're liable
But
for
if
it. There's a
16-year-old
section
doesn't
there.
have personal insurance.
Well, you got the owner of the ORV.
Which
Could be anybody.
That's true. Are they gonna require tags?
And if they're 15, that means that they're under 18. They're under the direct supervision of an adult with a license.
Which is still.
So that person could be sued.
All right, so the purpose of that question was to figure out what happens when there's an accident. If there's no faults not involved under that act, then insurance rates are going to go up because we're now allowing RVs all over the place, right? Last thing I want to see is insurance rates for Shiawassee County residents go up because we're having RVs. We got to make sure that don't happen.
We can check with other counties, see what happens.
We have to check on that.
Right.
That's another sticking point for me. And then tagging, like tags, insurance, like licensing, how does that work? You don't have to have them.
If they're,
How do we track what ORVs are on the road if we don't have tags on these things?
well, you won't be tracking them very well. But
That's
they
one of my concerns.
they have some ORVs, if they're licensed, if they can have a license like a registration, then they're not included in this. Because they drive on the roads like anything else. But these are only for what would normally be off-road vehicles who normally would not be allowed on the road.
and don't have a state ORV sticker because they're not planning on going.
If you're talking about this, I believe there is a state ORV sticker for
Right.
ORVs, but there's also a trail sticker.
Right.
That's different.
Right, well, ones that don't have either of those.
But
Ones that don't have either of those.
if the vehicle is required to have an ORV sticker, it could be cited for that. Just like now. I mean, we got ORVs on the road now.
I just talked with a legal person, the state police, and the ORVs, there's no longer can be on the road license. And the ones that are on the road with a license, insurance is gonna be so high, they won't be able to run them. That's the new law, just passed. So if you got an ORV and you had a license and you drove it on the road, you can't get one now. But
Right,
the
they
new
did
ones,
away with that.
and the new ones, if you had one on the road and you're gonna drive on the road, your insurance rate is gonna be so high that you probably won't drive it. Now that's, I got
Okay,
that.
so what's your concern about this? You want a sticker,
That
so.
doesn't have nothing to do with it.
No, I was just asking, see, those questions are.
I think there's a required, ORVs like in up north when you ride them, there's two permits that you have to have. You have to have one for the roads and one for the trails. So you gotta depend, most people buy both of them
We don't have trails here.
down here, so that you would probably have to, the state of Michigan requires most of them to have the road and trail permit.
So how does a sanctioned event with ORVs with kids under 16 years or how are they able to participate?
On the road?
They're on the
Or
private
not.
ground. They're on the private ground, so they can do anything.
So it's different. We don't- this
Some
doesn't-
landowners permitting them to do
You just need an ORV sticker.
that. Yes,
The state ORV sticker.
Okay, even if they're 13, even though our ordinance will say 16.
well,
Our ordinance is about the road. Our ordinance isn't about somebody's field.
Only the road. This doesn't have anything to do with off-road.
Only the road.
Okay, sorry, misunderstood.
But, I mean, technically, and maybe law enforcement, you can answer this, but Mr. Sheriff in the corner. With the ORV stickers right now, the state ones, they're green right now, you can get two of them. One is for trails, right, and one is for,
They were green.
I think it's just an ORV.
when you're going off the road someplace.
That's right.
They're orange this year, they change every year,
Okay.
so you can think the law enforcement can keep track.
In talking to the DNR, it sounds like most of them enforce the ORV sticker on the other counties that apply.
Right.
Do it up north right now, so they're on the road. So I think we would be looking at the same thing, requiring the ORV sticker down there.
No, you think I have us having our own sticker to collect revenue, or no? Just.
So, yeah, I believe everybody will have to have the on-road ORV sticker. As far as insurance goes, I think most people have insurance, you know, some people drive cars that don't have insurance on them. Myself personally, I have public liability insurance on myself, just so that if something happens, somebody can't sue me and take everything I have, so I think the majority of people are gonna carry the insurance. There's always gonna be the few that you can't control, and that's the same with people on the roads, you know, there's people that drive every day that don't have any.
And I guess my fear is just eventually, someone's gonna pull out into the road on a four-wheeler, and someone's going to be killed, and it could be a driver of a car, and that kid didn't have insurance, what the heck's gonna happen then? These are just, you know, I'm not against this ORV, I just wanna make sure that we have all our ducks in a row before we set life.
We're not gonna be charging for a tag or anything, but I see we have to start an ORV fund through the county treasurer. 50% of which of that money will go to the road commission for repairing damages to roads. And then the other 50% is going to the sheriff's office for ORV enforcement and training. If we're not making any money on this, where's that coming into play?
That's money comes from fines, Commissioner.
So you're gonna, I mean, if someone's in violation.
That's a repository of the fines that are charged, you know, in addition to court costs.
So we have to.
How many fines are we gonna have?
That's sure.
Well, I don't know.
If we have none, then we have-
Set an age of
Well, then you
16,
don't-
and every
you don't have to-
15-year-old's gonna be
You
out.
don't have to have,
You know,
Well, I think either way, it's gonna do something to the shoulders of the road, which will require work, which is probably gonna trickle down onto the townships. Townships will have to put more into the, because the shoulders are gonna wither away, whether they're doing these fishtailing or spinning their tires or creating ruts. I mean, just driving on the shoulder of the road is going to wear away that shoulder of the road.
the statute provides that the municipalities, townships, road commission
They can
don't
opt out.
have to do anything to improve the roadway for this is strictly fact, it provides if there's an accident, the operator of the ORV is prima facie responsible. Now, that's prima facie, it doesn't mean that can be overcome, but the presumption is that the ORV is at fault. Now, again, that can be overcome, like if some drunk driver runs over a guy on an ORV, then you can, but that's for liability purposes. But that fund you're talking about is just for,
If we have money.
it comes from fines.
One last question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
This could be directed at the sheriff. Mr. Sheriff, I just want to make sure this isn't going to create any undue burden on your deputies to have to now go out and patrol. Obviously, if we have fun and we're requiring fines, does that then make you guys feel like you're going to have to spend a certain amount of your time making sure that you're watching for ORVs and stuff, or chasing ghosts?
I don't think so. I've reached out to all the sheriffs in the state, and the ones that did respond, almost unanimously said that this has created no burden on enforcement for the sheriff's office. In fact, in one county, they said it's actually decreased the complaints now that it's legal. We were reaching out even today, as we were drafting some of the things out here, and the sheriffs that I spoke to today made additional comments, there are no problems. So it sounds like it'd be very minimal if it was, because we have them out there now and we enforce it.
That's true.
So,
Yeah.
I'd also like to add, there's nobody here from none of the commissioners from the road commission, but all the road commission, 100% is behind this also.
I've heard them at township meetings in MTA, they've said that.
So,
For the commissioners' review, you notice one other thing. The definition of ORV, there's some debate about it, but the consensus among DNR is that it does not include golf carts. Some of these ordinances have included golf carts, some of them have specifically excluded them. It's probably best to do one or the other. This particular one would include them. There's certain other problems they present, but they would be included under this ordinance.
So it includes them, it excludes snowmobiles. That's right next to the farm thing, military, fire, emergency, law enforcement purposes. So these roads could be paved roads and dirt roads?
Under the way it's written right here, yes. Cannot be, they can't be trunk lines or highways.
Right.
And this ordinance does not include any roads that are within the boundaries of a village or a city. The village or city can pass their own ordinance, but this ordinance does not address that, so.
And the townships are authorized the option to opt out of certain roads, right?
Townships can option out of the certain roads, so can the road commission. They're supposed to do it for one of the two reasons there, either to protect the environment or to, if they feel that in certain areas it presents a really clear danger for some reason. The road commission also can do that, but the road commission cannot do it for more than 30% of the linear miles in the county.
So can a township do it for all?
Could.
They could just say, we're not,
They could, but they're supposed to show that either that it's to protect the environment or to, the language it's in.
what section is that under?
You can see it under D. They would have to argue that it poses a particular and demonstrable threat to public safety.
Okay. Jeff?
So, and again, I reached out twice to the road commission about what roads they would like to not have included, and they said at this time, they're talking with the other road commissions that are up north in Gratiot County that just passed in that they don't want to exclude any roads. And they realize that their option is if the sheriff and the road commission finds that certain roads are starting to be a problem or they're having some issues, then at that time they will clearly chop them roads off from being part of this. If they have no roads at this point that they wanted to add, and that's all mainly with recommendations from other counties that Brett Freese has talked to, and he has exclusively talked to lots of them, as the sheriff has.
Okay, so how do you guys feel about, taking a vote, moving this on to the, committee of the whole, and if you have changes, amendments you wanna make? I know you mentioned one about.
If you guys pass it ultimately on, if you approve the draft on Thursday, then there's the clerk would be sending by certified mail notices at least 45 days in advance of a public hearing. So the actual item couldn't be passed at the earliest until the July meeting, because we got 45 days out, we got to hold a hearing.
Okay, so to move things along, what's your consensus? We move this along?
Yeah,
Make
I
changes as we go.
certainly would like to see the 12 up to 16.
I agree totally with
And
that.
I might entertain the idea of maybe removing the battery-operated golf carts from the roadways. That might be my two.
What's your concern with the golf carts? Is it the slow speed or is
Yeah.
it the?
Slow speed.
Well, they would have, they, and I could speak now, they'd be required to have a triangle on them, and they would also have to have headlights and taillights.
Well, a headlight and a taillight. And the maximum speed for all ORVs, even under the statute, on the roadway is 25 miles an hour. Most golf carts are like
So
I guess that'd be-
speed wouldn't
That's the
necessarily be
maximum.
the issue.
No, yeah, it's not speed, it's more,
But there's,
the battery
but-
runs out, now it's stuck in the
in
road.
defense
that.
of
Well,
the
It's
geriatric
gonna
it's on the
population,
shoulder.
It's gonna happen.
there's a lot of older men and women that would prefer driving a golf cart over a four-wheeler or something, or a three-wheeler or four-wheeler, so,
Are you
I-
one of those individuals?
not yet, but there is a guy in Owasso that drives his around now.
That's just my recommendation.
Okay, well, we've had discussion and I'm interested in moving this forward. So you said we vote on this Wednesday, we vote on this Thursday, then we have to have a public.
If you guys pass it at your meeting on Thursday, there's notices that have to go out for a public hearing, and there's certain others that have to be notified to all by, and then it has to be published. A meeting that has at least 45 days' notice, and then following a public hearing, it can be passed by the commissioners at their next meeting. But because of that, you're not gonna do it till June, because you're gonna be about 50 or 60 days, 50 or 55 days out from when we could earliest have the meeting, public hearing.
Okay, well, I guess we can take this home, we can look this over, come on Wednesday, make some changes, and we can get this moving.
I would make a motion that we adopt this ordinance with a few changes for Wednesday's committee of the whole.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
this meeting to order. If everyone would rise for the pledge of allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Crowd got smaller.
Yeah, all right. Call to the public. If anyone has anything. All right, we're gonna move right into the agenda. Hopefully being able to keep most of this kind of brief, moving it on to Wednesday. I think a lot of us have meetings we have to be to.
Yeah, I gotta go.
I'll move to consider the request of probate family court to designate a deputy sheriff to serve as a full-time bailiff, with an estimated cost of $82,177, with the court asserting a portion of the annual cost that will be covered by their certain court funds.
So moved.
We have a motion,
Or,
support, no discussion needed, this was taken care of. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say motion carries. Move on to agenda item 5. Consider authorizing the sheriff's office to hire a full-time deputy sheriff to fill a vacancy created by the assignment of a deputy to probate court if approved.
So moved.
Support.
Understanding this is an agenda item from last month. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. We'll move on to agenda item 6. Consider authorizing Department of Veteran Affairs to hire an additional full-time veterans benefit counselor with salary grade 5 on the 9-step scale, $32,614,000 to $42,390,000, with a starting range of $32,614 to $37,502.
So moved.
or,
Motion and support. Discussion real quick. Mr. Reeves, this is an additional position. We're seeing an uptick in volume, need an additional person.
Both. Right now, we only have one full-time benefits coordinator. If she goes on leave, gets sick or anything, that kind of stops the train, and unfortunately, we can't do that. In addition, we do have someone that comes in part-time. They're with the Marine Corps League. However, he is only on a verbal contract with them, and that ends in August. So at that time, we're down to just one benefits coordinator.
So we are seeing the uptick. All right. I assume the board's all in favor of this?
Yes.
I'm worried because I've heard from board members before that we can't spend money on positions. So I just want to make sure we're good with that.
Yes.
All right, perfect.
Is your intent to keep 2?
Yes.
All right.
we don't have to do this today, but on Wednesday or Thursday, can we discuss the van issue? The most recent news is with the van issue.
Yeah, we'll discuss that Wednesday. All right.
I know we're in a hurry, so.
We'll discuss that Wednesday. All right, thanks, sir.
Thank you, Eric.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Agenda item 7, approve replacement of the county's data backup storage system, which recently failed. Total estimated cost $5,935.02.
So moved.
Or,
Man, what are we getting the 2 cents from? They do this to us all the time. It seems like we always have a couple of cents we know.
remember that was a couple, remember that?
Yeah.
Months ago, like, where's the 2 cents coming from?
They're killing me with these pennies. All right, any discussion? I think it's pretty certain that it failed.
Chairman, there's
Yeah, no.
RESD is here.
Yeah, I think we're clear on a failure. It's a failure. We need a new one.
All
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Wednesday, agenda item 8, consider approving the tentative 2018 budget calendar, 2019 budget.
Or?
Motion and second. All right, everybody's seen that. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Agenda item 9, consider authorizing the quarterly disbursements to Mid-State Health Network in the amount of $20,000, $923.50 from Shiawassee County in accordance to Public Act 2 of 1986, Cobo Hall Convention Facility for liquor tax funds, and authorize board chair to execute all necessary documents.
So moved.
Motion, support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Approved. Entertain a motion to approve the Probate Family Court Employees Association tentative agreement with an effective date of May 19, 2018.
So moved.
Or,
Motion support.
May 19th of what?
2018.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Carries. Agenda item 11, consider approval of the Sheriff's Office Emergency Management Division to hire a part-time secretary at $12.50 per hour, up to 8 hours per week. The position will be at-will funded by reducing the emergency manager's hours by 5 hours per week and by utilizing the Sheriff's Office previously approved 120 hours of secretarial support.
So moved.
Or,
Motion and support. Do we need any discussion on this? Got it, pretty much. Trent will be reducing his hours. He needs some help in the office. There's a lot of little things that whoever gets hired in this position could help him with. It keeps him working on some of the bigger items that he's been working on, so. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Agenda item 12, motion to consider removing the court security deputies from the classified wage study list and assigning them in a group contract. The contract will provide for at-will status, part-time employment, $14 per hour without benefits, and with any work from 0 hours to 19 hours per week per officer, to be determined and assigned at the sole discretion of the county sheriff. To facilitate staffing, the sheriff may retain a pool of up to 15 officers under the contract.
So moved.
Mr. Chairman, that's been seconded. I believe the sheriff wants to address the actual pay and maybe a little bit more. Also up to 25 hours, which we can do with contract. We don't want to do it without, because then it brings in a whole bunch of other stuff. But
So it's
from 0 to 25 hours, it's not going to be more hours, but nevertheless, how he assigns
How do
their
they get to
officers.
us under 19 hours and it's supposed to be 25?
That's what we're saying, it's supposed to be 25. But we need a contract, to do that, otherwise the general non-rep would have them being paid prorated sick time.
Total. I've been speaking to the county coordinator in regards to eliminating one of the benefits that the part-time deputies had. Currently, they do have a retirement benefit with MERS. He's proposed eliminating that benefit. In response to that, I would request that we go to $14.50. If we're trying to give them a raise to begin with, but then we're going to take a benefit away from them, then I would request that we do it for $14.50 now.
and what's the total cost of this?
I do need to address it. I don't think they were supposed to have been in the pension plan anyway. Many of them are returning from a MERS retirement, which means they should have stopped their pension that they were receiving. They want to do this, that's what it does, we go by contracts. This was not, the whole point of this, and to have a set amount, is that it was never meant to be a career position. This is strictly
Hourly rate, and while the hourly rate can certainly be increased, and I think we talked about maybe 14.50.
Nonetheless, it is a benefit that's provided to them and has been in place, and they are aware of it.
Well,
So they've been paying in 1%, anticipating that they will have, be vested and then be able eventually draw a retirement.
that would not be likely. However, they would get any amount of money of their own that they had put in would be returned to them.
And I won't object to that, and that's why I'm asking just for the higher wage, as compensate them for.
Okay, so-
doing that.
Whether at 14 or 14.50, what's total extra cost of our budget?
If you take the hour, well, first of all, listen, we were paying money that we were obligated. We had to pay money into MERS, even though in fact they probably weren't going to get it. Very few of these guys were going to qualify for it, and some of them shouldn't have been on it. The cost is a flat rate cost. However many hours are assigned by the court and in certain cases by the county commissioners, and these guys work it. The whole point is they get paid that hourly rate.
Right.
The sheriff can assign whichever ones he wants to it.
Right, but I mean, just ballpark figure, how many, sometimes you have 2, 3, sometimes you have 4?
Usually
3. So, 6,000 hours, $60 increase, $250 increase.
Let me suggest 180. if we left it that way.
We're talking about taking this money out of general fund, or some out of yours, some out of general, or all out of yours. There's line item.
It'll be an addition, so it'll be coming out of general fund. I'm only budgeted $186,000 right now to cover court security for the, so the increase will be out of general fund.
Just the
Correct.
It's just a flat payment for all.
And I guess the point I'm making is, I don't think it's that much money. These are people that carry firearms, they're certified police officers.
I'll amend my motion.
You know,
We spend twice as much on furniture.
I would say let's send it to the committee of the whole for further consideration amongst everyone. We do want it to read from, do we want it to read from 0 to 19 or 0 to 25 right now?
As a contract, it can read 0 to 25. That won't necessarily increase, that doesn't increase how many hours they work. They only have so many hours to work.
Right.
But
0 to 25.
for ease of scheduling, it allows them to some flexibility.
That's understood.
Most of them are working 25 right now, and it's difficult now to build a schedule.
So you want to amend your motion to
Yeah,
$14.50 per hour to 25 hours, or?
Well, I mean, if that's what we're gonna consider on
14,
Wednesday,
Okay.
of course, if we decide no, then it fails, then there's nothing, so that's scary too. But I'll amend 14.50 an hour, 25 hours.
0 to 25.
Yes.
0 to 25. All right. All right, and that, who's for that, Dan? That's what your second's okay with the changes there? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Any other agenda items? Just 1 second, Jackie, not to just glaze over you so fast, but I trust everything you do. You've done good for us all since you've been here. And if you got up and told me what you were gonna do, I wouldn't have understood it anyway, so thank you for being here, thank you for coming. I trust your judgment, and you say we need it, so I appreciate that. Chairman.
Oh, one thing I forgot to, have, me and Jeremy I forgot to put on the agenda. So I called Rick Crawford and the Solid Waste Committee, and I got their approval to ask for this. So the Parks and Recreation Committee would like, for the Board of Commissioners to approve up to $500 to get, we're working on building the bathroom at Gek Road Park. We want to repair the light out there so that there's a good floodlight out there, and we want to buy 2 moderately priced trail cams that we're gonna put up, and that's in hopes of, with a light up, and we catch guys trying to vandalize it out there, that possibly if we prosecute them, it might slow down the vandalism out there.
So make sure there's locks on the trail cams so they don't steal the trail cams.
Yeah, we'll put them up higher up, and we'll, do something, but, it'd be the person, Recreation Committee wanted to buy, repair the light and get 2 trail cams, and then not to exceed like $500. And, Solid Waste, Rick Crawford and the Solid Waste Committee approved it also, and that's what I'd be asking.
So for 2 trail cams and a light, not to exceed 500 from the waste management.
Yes,
Who's
sir.
gonna put them up?
I don't know, Tim Hill.
Rick
or
Crawford?
Rick Crawford and his very generous group that's gonna be working out there. And once again, I am going out there and doing the excavating work for free. The county, the 5,000 weight crew is gonna buy the septic tank, but I'm gonna install and do all that work. And then Rick Crawford and Brian Marks and that group are finishing everything up, and we really hope to be on budget. So.
All right, so I will entertain a motion to purchase a light and 2 trail cams for the Parks and Rec, not to exceed $500 out of the waste management funds.
Gek Road Park.
At Gek Road Park. Motion by Commissioner Marks, second.
Support.
Electricity already there? Is it gonna be electric?
There's already
Electrified, not solar?
Yeah, no, it's already
There's
there.
a power bill that comes to.
We already paid that, yeah. There's been a light there, it just doesn't work. I don't know if it can be repaired, but you can buy, the lithium lights for less than $100.
All right, anything else? 2 trail cams, a light, no more than $500 out of waste management funds for the Parks and Rec Department. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Any other agenda items come before the Finance Committee at this time? Now, we'll move to the second call of the public. Public has anything at this time? If not, we're adjourned. Thank you.